Welcome to our online English class. In today's class, we are going to learn about something interesting. Staying at home for a long time is boring, isn't it? Do you like to travel? I like to travel. I hope you all like to travel too. Especially, I like to travel by train. Today's title is Journey by Train. As we have discussed earlier, we all love to travel in train, right? But here, what our characters experience, it's entirely different from our travel. Especially, we have 3 sections in this lesson, and this extract is taken from a famous novel, Around the World in 80 Days, written by Jules Verne. Come on, let's learn the main two characters, Phileas Fogg, an Englishman, and Passepartout, a French attendant. They both had a bet in a reform club. What is a bet? Pandayam, we'll say, isn't it? So they both had a bet with their friends. Do you know what was the bet amount? It was $20. In today's amount, it is 10 lakh rupees. So they made a bet. What was the bet? To travel around the world in 80 days. So this was the bet which these two men made with their friends. Let's see whether they were able to fulfill the bet. So these two men, Phileas Fogg and Passepartout, they decided to start their journey. And that was the time when our Indian government's railway work was in process. So the work was continuing and they started their journey in train. Now listen carefully and learn which places they travelled in India and where did they go. Phileas and Passepartout, they are ready for their journey. They both were accompanied by the third person. His name is Francis Cromarty. So these three, they have decided to go to Calcutta.
Dear students, read page number 80 and 81 to know about these places what I have mentioned here. Now let's come back to the lesson. The train started punctually and the passengers were a number of officers and government officials. As I said, the train started from Bombay. The train passed bridges and islands of Salsette and got into the open country. During night, it left the mountains behind and passed Nasik, and the next day proceeded over the flat, well-cultivated country of the Khandesh, with its straggling village above which rose the towers and temples. This fertile territory is watered by many small rivers and clear streams, mostly tributaries of Godavari. The train passed through cotton, coffee, nutmeg, clove and pepper plantations, while the steam curled in spirals around group of palm trees, in the midst of which were seen attractive bungalows, vihars and marvelous temples decorated by the rich work of Indian architecture. Then they came up vast area extending towards the horizon with jungles where snakes and tigers lived. These creatures fled at the noise of the train. Then they came to forest where elephants stood gazing with sad eyes at the train as it passed. So the inhabitants of these forests are, who are the inhabitants? Snakes, tigers, elephants. So when this train passed, some animals, they ran into the jungle in fear, but the elephants and were looking at the train very sadly. By the way, at 12:30 means 12:30, at Burhanpur, the travellers made a hasty breakfast. They all ate their breakfast there and started off for Asurgur. Now they travelled along the banks of small river Tapti, which empties into the Gulf of Cambrai near Surat. Then towards evening the train entered the valley of Sudpur mountains, which separate the Khandesh from Bundelkhand. It was 3 in the morning. Dear students, in these paragraphs we have seen about the places where the train passed. Now let's read the next paragraph in page number 82. Students, before reading the next paragraph, we'll see the meanings of new words in that paragraph. Halt, stop, acacia, a thorny tree, snapped, became angry, furious, extremely angry, foreseen, predicted, obstacle, difficulty. Students, take page number 82 and read the first 3 paragraphs along with me. The train stopped at 8 o'clock in the midst of a clearing some 15 miles beyond Rothal, where there were several bungalows and workmen's cabins. The conductor, passing along the carriages, shouted, "Passengers will get out here."
Thank you for reading this paragraph along with me. Immediately the train stopped after 15 miles beyond Rothal, and the conductor of the train asked the passengers to get down from the train.
Students, take page number 82 and read the next 2 paragraphs along with me. Phileas Fogg looked at Sir Francis Cromarty for an explanation, but the general could not tell why there was a halt in the midst of this forest of dates and acacia. Curious Passepartout rushed out and speedily returned crying, "Monsieur, no more railway." Here Monsieur means a French word to call people with respect instead of sir.
These 3 men were confused without knowing the reason why the conductor is asking the passengers to get down. Now this Phileas Fogg was confused and he looked at Francis Cromarty for an explanation, but they don't know why the train stopped there. Meanwhile, the Passepartout, he got down to check why the train stopped there. After some time, he came back and he said the train has stopped. Now, let's see how these 3 men are going to face the unexpected situation. Come on, let's read the remaining paragraphs to know what happened in their journey.
"What do you mean?" asked Sir Francis. "I mean to say that the train isn't going to go any further." The general at once stepped out while Phileas Fogg calmly followed him, and they proceeded together to the conductor. "Where are we?" asked Sir Francis. "At the hamlet of Golby." "Do we stop here?" "Certainly. The railway isn't finished." "What? Not finished?" "No, there's still a matter of 15 miles to be laid from here to Allahabad, where the line begins again." Hamlet means Kugramam. Here the train has stopped in a hamlet. "But the papers announce the opening of the railway throughout." "What can I tell you, officer? The papers were mistaken." "Yet you sell tickets from Bombay to Calcutta," snapped Sir Francis, who was growing angry. "No doubt," replied the conductor, "but the passengers know that they must provide means of transportation for themselves from Colby to Allahabad. So, children, here now the train has stopped in Colby. From Colby to Allahabad, these passengers have to find a means of transport and they have to reach Allahabad. From there, the train will function to Kolkata. Now let's see what these passengers are going to do. Sir Francis was furious. Passepartout would willingly have knocked the conductor down and did not dare to look at Mr. Fogg. Sir Francis said. Mr. Fogg quietly, "We will, if you please, look about for some means of transport to Allahabad." Mr. Fogg, this is a delay greatly to your disadvantage. No, Sir Francis, it was foreseen. What? You knew that the way? Not at all, but I knew that some obstacle or other would sooner or later arise on my route. Nothing, therefore, is lost.
I have 2 days which I have already gained to sacrifice. A steamer leaves Calcutta for Hong Kong at noon on the 25th. This is the 22nd, and we shall reach Calcutta in time. As I have explained earlier, Passepartout told the men that the train has stopped.
Hearing this from Passepartout, the general Cromarty, he got down and he went to speak to the conductor, followed by Mr. Fogg. Mr. Fogg was very calm. He didn't get tensed, but this Cromarty was very much tensed. So he went and asked the conductor, why did the train stop there? Because the train ticket was from Bombay to Calcutta, but in between, why did the train stop? They wanted the reason, so they asked the conductor. The conductor said, the railway line stops there. The work is still going on. The process going on, so from there, for 50 miles to Allahabad, there is no railway line. So these men got very tensed, and he said, but a newspaper, the railway was open and it was started functioning everywhere. But the conductor said, no, the newspaper has given a wrong information. Actually, the railway work is not yet completed. Now, Cromarty and Passepartout, they were very angry because they have made a bet, isn't it? Within 80 days, they have to go around the world. This was their bet, and in the beginning of the day, they had to face such a big problem. But Mr. Fogg said, don't worry, I expected this. And these men were surprised. They asked, how did you expect this? Do you know that the railway line is not yet over? Mr. Fogg said, as I have predicted this obstacle earlier, don't worry, actually on 25th, from Calcutta to Hong Kong, a steamer is leaving. So that day was 22nd. So he said to his friends, don't worry, however, we will reach there on 25th. Extract ends here. Journey by train. Our main three characters, they started their journey in train. But in these extracts, we could see that they didn't complete their journey. Right? Now it's time for you to do the homework. The homework is given on the board. Kindly check it and do the homework without fail. Write your homework on time and send it to us. Now it's time to wind up this class. I'll meet you all in my next class. Until then, it's bye from Deepa ma'am.